Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Aisha Subarkash. Just weeks after a failed rebellion shook the Russian government and military, Vladimir Putin addressed leaders from the Shanghai Cooperation Organization via video link. The SCO and its annual summits have become a crucial global platform for President Putin as the Russian leader tries to shake off hints of isolation brought on by the war in Ukraine. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who hosted this year's SCO Summit, warned of ongoing threats of terrorism and global challenges to food, fuel and fertilizer supplies. Meanwhile, President Putin told SCO leaders that the Russian people were united as ever, saying the country came together against an attempted armed mutiny. Last month, the Wagner mercenary group launched an armed rebellion against the Russian military, but ultimately failed. The SCO, which comprises China, Russia and countries across Asia, also formally welcomed its newest member, Iran. Analysts have labeled the group as a potential challenger to the West, while others have dismissed it, citing the internal divisions and rivalries among members. And to further discuss this year's SCO Summit, joining me now from Tehran is Ali Ahmadi. He is an executive fellow at the Geneva Center for Security Policy. And from Berlin, Xin Zhang. He is an associate professor at East China Normal University. A warm welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me on Straight Talk. So, Ali, what is expected of this latest SCO Summit, and have there been any breakthroughs so far?
Well, it's been short on breakthroughs. It has been quite eventful. President Putin made his first appearance on the world stage, as it were, since the failed coup attempt by Wagner. Prime Minister Modi addressed the conference, which was very important considering their tensions with Pakistan, and Iran finally completed its ascension process to become a full member.
So, Xin, as Ali mentioned, all eyes were on Vladimir Putin, who addressed the summit just weeks after this failed rebellion by the Wagner. How important was it for Putin to address the summit right now? And was he trying to send any messages?
Since this is a virtual summit, right? So I think the importance of Putin addressing this summit in a virtual format probably reduced the importance of this particular appearance. Of course, his appearance in public does show at least trying to send a message that he's still in well control of the situation within Russia. And also, let's not forget, before the summit, he also called several members of the SCO groups during the mutiny. Right? So in that sense, he does try to use the SCO format as a good chance to show he's still in control and no worry. But it's a virtual summit, so I don't want to read too much out of it.
So, Ali, what do you think? Did the rebellion by the Wagner group affect Russia's standing within the SCO?
I don't think it's so much the attempted coup by the Wagner group. It's more the fact that Russia's energies and its focuses are now so focused on the war in Ukraine, and so its capacity to work with local partners is diminished to some extent, also because of the sanctions. Now, of course, Russia's made a lot of efforts to turn its trade towards the east, diverting away from the west. But there are a lot of barriers towards that. Obviously, there's a lot of infrastructural barriers towards that. Some of that is going to be addressed within the context of the SCO, like the north-south trade routes that goes through Iran and heads to India. But there's also that the Russians have historically done a lot more business with the West than with the East. And so it's going to take some time to divert those resources.
So, Xin, given the Ukraine war isn't going as expected for Russia, is Moscow losing influence in the region? And have the power balance within the SCO organization been changing against Moscow and maybe in favor of China?
I think this mutiny and also the slow progress on the battlefield between Russia and Ukraine does tarnish the image of Russia as a powerful player in this region, particularly as a traditional powerful player who's capable and willing to use hard power. Right? So that's one part of the process we are seeing. But it's hard to say that's going to create more room for China in this region in particular. I just mentioned, right? Putin called several leaders right during the during the mutiny, including several countries in Central Asia and Turkey, if I'm not mistaken. But he didn't actually call President Xi from China. To some extent, China is an increasingly important player in the region. But in terms of those hardcore power politics, particularly related to the use of hard power, China's overall seem to be try to stay away, right? Take a distant role and maintain a supposedly neutral stance. So I don't think the relative declining role of Russia in this region directly opens more space for China to take a more active or more powerful role in this particular region.
So, Ali, this summit also saw Iran officially becoming the newest member of the SCO. How will Iran's membership add to the effectiveness of the organization, and what would SCO membership mean for Iran and the group as a whole?
Well, Iran is a major player in the region, and so its involvement in a multilateral security arrangement like the SCO can serve the SCO quite well. For example, a key issue that has come up both in this conference, this summit, and the last year's summit was the situation surrounding Afghanistan. Obviously, Iran has a lot of influence on the Afghan situation, both because of the long border and because of the cultural influence Iran has there, as much of Afghanistan is part of the historic Persian Empire. And so this is an important issue for the SCO. But for Iran, the security cooperation aspect is important. Iran has been stepping up its security-related interactions and even its military exercises with China. And the SCO will provide one new format through which these kinds of interactions can be normalized both with China and with other members. But Iran is also looking to the SCO to address some of its isolation from an economic standpoint. The SCO has developed its economic dimensions more and more over the last number of years, and Iran wants to participate in those to take advantage of the trade and economic cooperation dimensions of the SCO. Of course, nobody, not China, not Iran, not Russia, figured out how to deal with the dominance of the US dollar. There are a lot of de-dollarization programs which are going to play a role in the SCO as well, but those are still in their initial stages.
So, Shin, what do you think? Could Tehran overcome the negative effects of Western-led sanctions on its economy through the SCO?
I think the potential is there, but overall, in the intermediate range, I don't think that Iran will be able to get a huge amount of leverage by becoming a full member state of SCO. Most what can be done either has already been done or will very likely take place mostly through bilateral channels or some other trilateral or other forms of groupings beyond SCO. Right? So SCO itself actually does not necessarily give Iran that much of immediate leverage to play with, whether it's in the security sphere or in the trade or economic sphere. Right? So Iran may play up the role of Russia and China in the UN Security Council regarding the nuclear issue, also may try to expand its trade relation with some of these SCO members. But many of them, what I understand, has done mostly through channels outside of SCO.
So, Ali, the host of this year's SCO meeting is Indian Prime Minister Modi, fresh off his trip to Washington. Modi has been playing a delicate balancing act, maintaining close ties with both the West and its main rivals, Russia and China. Is India in a unique position to continue this, or it will eventually have to choose sides?
Well, India really cherishes the idea of being able to play both sides, being able to have interactions with both East and the West. But this has been a key issue undermining, to some extent, the SCO's effectiveness over time, is that it has some members, it's a diversity of members with very different approaches to foreign policy. And so it's been very difficult to create a coherent foreign policy position regarding the SCO's approach to the world. President Modi was welcomed in Washington last week. He will be in Paris next week. He's not going to choose between East and West. And the Chinese are going to have to deal with how to negotiate these different kinds of foreign policies. And I think that's going to go towards building a more holistic bloc that has security cooperation, has economic cooperation, that builds capacity internally. Obviously, a lot of the de-dollarization programs, they are very favorable for countries that are under sanctions like Russia and Iran, but there's something India wants as well, because it wants to protect its economic relationship with these countries, as well as to be able to trade in its own currency. So there is a lot of commonality, but there are also divergences. And so the countries of the organization, especially China, need to figure out how to negotiate those differences.
So Shin, despite the show of unity at annual summit, several members of the SCO, namely Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, India, and Pakistan, have deep-seated problems. How united are the members of the SCO, and are there many internal contradictions in it? And if there are, does it hurt the organization's credibility?
Yeah, I think there is a great amount of diversity within the group, which to some extent it does become a barrier for forging a coherent collective entity and facilitating collaboration among these member states, whether in the security sphere or in the economic sphere. You mentioned a few pairs of bilateral relations, India, Pakistan, and some of the Central Asian countries on water issues. And there probably the list can go on actually even beyond that. And for these issues, unfortunately, I don't think SCO so far has played a very effective, constructive role to facilitate, for example, negotiation, facilitate the political settlement of these differences. And these differences also become a quite key problem when the SCO is considering further expanding its membership, right? For countries with border disputes, or countries with the domestic political instabilities, civil war, or on a de facto war with another country, should these countries be considered as potential new members into SCO. So these are real challenges. SCO hasn't found a very concrete and effective way to deal with that so far.
So, Ali, Turkey has been a SCO dialogue partner since 2012, and President Erdogan addressed this year's summit as well. He has before expressed interest in obtaining a full membership of that organization. How viable is this?
Well, Turkey's interest in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is very much intertwined with its concerns about dependency on the United States. Obviously, Turkey is a member of NATO and as so has a very strong relationship with the United States, but it does not want to become too dependent on the US in terms of arms sales and cooperation. So its flirtation with the SCO largely comes into play under those circumstances. For Turkey to become an actual full member of the SCO would certainly ruffle a lot of feathers in Washington, but its lower level cooperation, such as being a dialogue partner, is probably not something that Washington is going to react that harshly against.
All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.